Well, hello, everybody. Welcome to today's episode of the Multifamily Mind. I'm your host, Steve Wunch, and today we're thrilled to have Shelley Robinson, a powerhouse in the multifamily and prop tech world. Shelley is a seasoned strategist and customer success executive who helps real estate investors and operators optimize technology and boost performance. With a strong track record in scaling teams, driving ROI, and staying ahead of industry trends, she's here to share her insights on prop tech strategies, data intelligence, and leadership with a grit and growth mindset. Beyond her EMBA and business acumen, she's also a musician and DJ, balancing strategy with creativity. So get ready to dive into her insights on leadership, growth, and the future of prop tech. Let's dive right in. Shelley, are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right. Well, so glad to have you here.
Thank you, Steve. When you presented the invitation, I was actually really excited to talk to you because you're just an infectious, positive person, and I love what you're doing. So thank you.
Well, thank you. Thanks very much. And I'm really excited because your background, you are, hitting on all the bells and whistles that are on most multifamily operators' radars right now in terms of prop tech and strategic planning. And, really, we've got some markets that are going backwards in terms of rent growth. And I think, it's having a person who's in your seat and who's got your experience to share some of your insights, I think is going to be so valuable for those in our listening audience. So thank you for taking time to join us today.
Absolutely. Excited to talk with you.
Yeah. And you've got some pretty exciting stuff going on. I know it was just released on LinkedIn yesterday, or was it today, maybe even, that you've launched a new venture. And I would love if you wanted to tell our audience a little bit about what's going on.
Thank you for that. I actually just officially announced PMX Partners, so Property Management Excellence, and we are a firm of what I call deepertise. So deep expertise from multifamily and prop tech, engaging in outcome-based consultancy. So what that really means when you say outcome is you actually start with the end in mind. What are the problems that you're facing? And right now our industry is really facing a talent attraction and retention crisis. What you just mentioned with rent stagnation, cost creep, prop tech complexity, AI emergence. There's a whole slew of themes that we can get engaged. Look at the deepest problems that your organization is facing, prioritize those problems, and then actually come up with an action plan and focus on getting results out of those outcomes. So we have that expertise in marketing, operations, prop tech, strategy, and really are focused on making sure that you get something from the engagement, which is either more money or cost savings out to. So
that's great.
We're excited to.
Yeah, congratulations. That's a big picture. I know it's always an interesting space to be in when you're launching something and you're going out on your own. And so any way that we can help you from the Multifamily Mind perspective, we're glad to. And I know that through our conversations, today people are going to pick up on how wise you are, and the insights that you have are going to be stuff that they can really grab onto and make a difference in their operations. So why don't we kind of get started with a little bit of you mentioned a few things off the cuff at the beginning there in terms of rent stagnation. What are you hearing in terms of market strategies? I mean, you're in the Bay Area, right? So you're high rents, and I'm sure that your situation models the same situation in other markets. What are you hearing in terms of rent stagnation, rent control, all those terrible things that are out there working against multifamily operators?
There's a lot going on right now, and market by market, it really depends too. We've got markets like Phoenix that have more supply than they've had, lots of A-class lease-ups. I really follow Jay Parsons. He's the former chief economist at RealPage, and the current chief economist, Carl Whitaker. They have really deep insights into what's going on in those submarkets. So if you're not following them, I highly recommend to track it for your submarket. But lots of lease ups, lots of supply, lots of new builds, and all those new builds are pressing down into the former A-class product and B product. I think now more than ever, service is a differentiator. Your property reputation is a differentiator. So I would say those are the first places to really look. How is your service? How is your property reputation? Those will press down, and you can actually be at the top of your market if you have those things rolled out successfully. One of the things, if you haven't launched it as a company, is like a hot list focus group where you get all of your departmental leaders together, and any of your properties that aren't making their NOI right now, get them into that hot list focus group, make it a positive experience, make it goal focused, and really all dive in and focus on helping those properties succeed.
I love that.
Yeah. And it's really, from an implementation standpoint, it's really a once a week meeting with focused action planning. So marketing has their focus, training has their focus, the site teams have theirs. Do you need 2 leases this week? What does it take to get there? What does your revenue manager say? And get everybody really honed in on solving those problems. That's real action that you can actually take and implement today at your company, whether you're regional manager, a director of operations, VP of operations. Get that hot list focus group going and focus on those struggling properties. That to me is the edge.
Yeah, it is an edge for sure. We did something similar to that when I was at Equity Residential. We called it the watch list. Of course, it always had a negative connotation, but we really reframed it to say, no, this is really not about you, property. It's about your support team and what we see through our training lens, what we see through the marketing lens, and what maybe revenue management might see. And all of us coming together and combining our expertise to create a good action plan for you guys. I think that's a fabulous idea. I've been hearing this theme in my head the last few weeks, Shelley, and it's the old school is the new school.
Basics, right? It's getting back to the basics. And really, when you have that hot list focus group or that watch list, you're really crowdsourcing your expertise and you're crowdsourcing your ideas. Like, I was talking to Stacy Hampton last week, and she's a consultant for different companies. I just love her. But she had this idea, and she posted on LinkedIn and crowdsourced it, of having these Be Back open houses. And they got way more leases than what they needed for the week. And it actually was not expensive. And then you share that information, you implement it, and you help each other out. So that positive connotation around really being helpful is really critical and key.
Yeah. Yeah. And, creating that safe space, so let's talk a little bit from your perspective. Not everybody's going to, if I end up on that list, I obviously understand there's a reason why I'm here, and it's probably because we're not meeting expectation, or maybe we're not performing as well as we thought we would. What recommendations would you make for some of the, regional level up to the C-suite in terms of, you started with one of my favorite quotes when you first started speaking. You talked about start with the end in mind.
Yeah.
Which is a Stephen Covey. That's, one of the 7 habits of highly successful people. And, for a leader to start, to kick things off and say, this is not a shame list. This is, a call to action for all of your support folks here. What are some recommendations you could make for the leadership level in terms of creating that space where people feel safe to share ideas and to tell the truth?
That culture of candor that so many of us crave. That's actually a book I'm reading right now. Is that culture of candor? Yeah, Radical Candor.
Kim Scott. It's a good book.
It's so good. It's such a good book. I would say first and foremost, audit your leadership. So if you're getting a lot of negative feedback from your team about this idea, then I think you have to start with you. And I think we've all been there. We need to make sure we're being the type of leader that we're creating a culture and a radical candor environment where people can share what they're really going through. And I would say, second of all, this isn't about public shaming. That should be private. If there is something in performance with that property manager or somebody on the team, that's a private conversation. That hot list or that watch list, that's really about best practices. That's about everybody coming together and really, as a company, helping each other win so that everybody is doing well and your owners are happy and they're making money. Third, I would really make sure you're sitting down with someone and having a conversation about what the expectations are from that hot list. Make sure it is positive. Make sure the expectations are clear. I would have a action plan. So whether that's a property performance plan, whatever you want to call it, take measurable goals, not too many of them. And generally, financial is a good place to start and work backwards. But sit down and explain the why to that property manager. I think, and I had a conversation yesterday with somebody that was a property manager for me. She and I had happy hour, and we were talking about explaining the why. It's back to your basics. Why are we here? What are the goals? What does the owner want out of this property? And how do we get there together? And really being supportive. Keep that open door. Be there for your team. You should never be too busy for your managers or your team especially if they're your struggling properties.
Yeah, I know it's sometimes it's easier said than done, because I know regional managers tend to have, a lot on their plates. I've know some companies where regionals are managing upwards of 10, 15 properties by themselves. So it is a lot, but to your point, like if you're going to make a site visit, be intentional about it. If it's one of these hot list focused properties, make sure you have kind of a destination in mind when you do make that site visit, so that it's not just that surfacey, meet with the manager for 15, 20 minutes and do a quick walk of the property and then head on to the next one, but really be an intentional and talking about stuff and coming from a place of curiosity versus judgment. That's another thing that's kind of high in the atmosphere these days too, is just to, don't come in blaming, come in asking, and you'll be surprised at the different kind of conversations that you'll have when you take that kind of more prescriptive approach, I think.
Two things on that. I would say, first and foremost, sharing with the property manager that being on a problem property and being a fixer is actually really good for your resume and your growth.
Seriously.
Two, we've all been there. We've all been on that property that's not performing. So share that. Like, as a leader, take the time to share your own stories of being in a struggling property or a struggling market. Or maybe you failed before. What did you do about it? How did you pick yourself back up? I'm actually writing a white paper right now on best practices for property walks, and it's funny.
Awesome.
I actually just sent a draft to my former boss, Stacy Manis, for her to take a look at it. I'm like, am I on par here? But if anybody wants a copy of it, I'm happy to share it. Oh,
that's great. That's great. Yeah. And you are a real resource. I've seen, and it's not just since PMX Partners launched. You're pretty good at putting out some, even if it's just a thought leadership, quick slideshow on LinkedIn, the content that you're posting is really, it's intentional and it's got a lot of high value to it. So I'm going to encourage our listeners to be sure to follow you on LinkedIn and pay attention to the things that you're talking about.
Thank you, Steve. What's funny? I'm a reluctant social media engager.
Really?
I hired a executive coach, which I also am super thankful. It was something I hesitated to do for a really long time. And one of the first tasks he had for me was you need to develop your voice and your brand. I was like, oh, damn it. I avoided it for months. So I appreciate that. Anyone else out there who's a reluctant social media engager, like, do it. You'll be really glad you did. I can attest.
I love that. I love that you pushed yourself out of a comfortable space. I love that you sought some guidance from a, neutral third party. And, for folks that are listening that might be in the same situation, whether it's LinkedIn or public speaking or taking the next step to being a regional manager or to being a property manager, developing that network of, and, you had tons of people supporting you as you were out there in that space. Me being one, and just really loving to see your journey and to see, some of the stuff you shared was very personal. Some of it was, personal insights and things going on in the heart. And then a lot of it's really great, strategic and thought-provoking things to apply to your business as well. So you got some good stuff going on, my dear.
I really, that means a lot.
Yeah. Well, you're welcome. Hi, folks. I wanted to take a quick 30-second break so that I could say, I hope you're enjoying today's episode, which couldn't be brought to you without being superpowered by Sales Mail. I mean, really, we couldn't produce this content without them. SalesMail is the easiest and best tool for sending personalized video via email, text, and CRM. So, if you really are enjoying today's episode, it would mean a lot to me if you would visit salesmail.com so you can check out how our solutions might impact your business communications. And don't forget to follow us on LinkedIn as well. Okay, that's enough. Now back to the conversation. You know, one of the things that really kind of hit my radar was you used this word about get well plans for struggling properties. And I wondered if we might just kind of marinate on that topic for just a few minutes, because I think it'll speak to both, you know, the property level folks, the service teams, the leasing teams, as well as the regional managers and the folks that are in the corporate support teams. You know, when you're looking at say we've got a property and maybe occupancy is an issue or maybe rent growth is an issue, where do you typically start your process, and what are the things that you look at first to sort of diagnose what the illness might be?
It's a good illness is a good word, right? You have to sit down with the team, have a candid conversation, look at financials. Financials always tell a story. And then I think you have to look at all the departmental heads that support those communities and that specific community, and actually start to ask why. One of my former leaders at Avalon Bay, Brad Ward, he actually used to say, ask why 7 times. And,
7 times?
7 times to get to the bottom of it. So I think you have to, first things first, what are the top themes that start to emerge out of those conversations? And out of those, what would make the most impact? So I think you have to prioritize those themes. And then from there, break it down into very small pieces, eat the elephant piece by piece, and turn that into your weekly one-on-one conversations with your manager. And I think, in technology, we use the word roadmap, right? Product roadmap. I think a get well plan is really a property roadmap. You got to get rid of the clutter and the noise. If they've got, 30 vacant units that aren't turned, that's your number one problem. You need an action plan around getting those units ready and marketable. If you've got 80% turnover and you've had 4 property managers in the last year, that's a leadership issue. There's something there. You got to dive in and really diagnose what it is. Is it the compensation? Is it, sometimes it's a reputation issue. Sometimes the property has issues with safety that need to be taken care of. Sometimes they're really hard conversations that you have to have with ownership to actually start to solve the top level problems that are driving, because you can harp on revenue all day, but what's driving into that revenue? Maybe they're a property that's 20 years old and it's got 4 new lease ups around it. You need to have a hard conversation about what it takes to fix that. So that's my best practice. You have to become a detective.
Yep.
And really have those conversations and really make sure you're not punitive in those conversations.
100%. Yeah. That's really key, because if you want the truth, you need to be willing to hear it, and then you have to take it and act on it. That's for darn sure. I love that you use, in SaaS, we use roadmap and, what's our plan. And, the roadmap is always built on what we're hearing our customers say their needs are. We may poll them to find out, of these, 7 initiatives that we're thinking about, which are the ones that would bring you the most value. And then we begin to build that strategy and create that roadmap. And then I'm also thinking about, you use the word get well plan. So I'm thinking about a wellness plan, when you're looking to lose weight or you're looking to, boost your metabolism, and you can't just sit there and think about it. You have to create a plan. And so I think that's a really important strategic piece is, start with the why, start with the end in mind. This is why we're here. This is why we're talking about this stuff. What are the things that let's talk about our dirty laundry. Let's not hide it. Nobody's to blame. We're in this together as a team. And then from that point forward, here's the way that we can make this plan come together. I love that.
I would also add many times when I have conversations with regional teams, they don't really even have a clear picture from their owner what the goals of the owner is for the assets. And I think that's a wonderful place to start if owners are listening into this. Is it a
Yep.
5-year hold? Is it a 1-year hold? Is there particular things you're trying to do to refinance? Like, what are your goals? Because you should explain that all the way down to your property groundskeeper. Everyone should know why they're there. Everyone should know why they're showing up every day and what those goals are, rather than just like, this isn't meeting expectations, make more money. Well, that's not specific enough, right?
Yeah.
People want to know. Everyone wants purpose.
Yep.
Everyone wants to understand their place in their role at work.
Yeah. And I love how you even mentioned groundskeepers, housekeepers, those folks that sometimes don't feel like they've got a viable seat at the table. Man,
Yes.
their insights can be so valuable. They're hearing what residents are saying.
Yeah.
Service team, leverage that service team and that institutional knowledge that all those folks that have been at the property have. Yeah, it's interesting to think about. Wanted to also kind of maybe parlay over into some of your some of the other words you used, which I love, is grit and growth mindset. And, we're getting into a market where, it's going to get, I don't want to use any, doom and gloom, but I think it's becoming uber competitive, whether you're class A, class B, class C or not. You're competing now for the customer in ways that we haven't had to do so in such a long time. I mean, I'm feeling like it's 19, I hate to even say the dates because it'll date me, but I feel like it's 1994, 95.
I remember.
I had people, having fistfights in the parking lot over who got there first and got their application in first. And it feels to me like because of the state of the market now that we're kind of in that place where we've got to have a bit more grit than we did. And how do you coach somebody to understand, first of all, what grit is, and then secondly, why there's value for owners and operators in having gritty employees?
Emotional resilience, emotional response, all of those really tie into how you show up in life. It's how you show up in your relationships, and life is not fair or easy for anyone, period.
Right.
I think every single individual has opportunities that come their way that are very difficult. And at work, right now, this is one of those times, and probably many people watching this episode haven't gone through a downturn or a recession in the industry, or even oversupply in a healthy market.
Yeah.
They haven't done it before. So I think as leaders, we have to show up as that example. Again, who are you as a leader? How are you showing up? Are you showing up at the property exacerbated and stressed and your blood pressure's high and you're, dictating things rather than taking the time to ask questions? So right. I think there are opportunities to talk about it. As leaders, we should talk about our learning moments of grit when we've fallen short. And second, and most importantly, when we do fall short, we should make it right. Yeah. Having that humble leadership to actually say, hey, I could have done better here. Here's what I'm working on. Here's how I need to show up better and have more grit and resilience. Here's where I get frustrated. Mm-hmm. So I would say that. And then there's a book called The Obstacle is the Way that really helped me reframe difficulties. And, Steve, I lost a son who had a 5-year illness. I think that's like a perfect breeding ground of grit and resilience.
Yeah, for sure. I'm so sorry for your loss.
Really hard, but as time heals, it does heal over time. But on that, in the book, The Obstacle is the Way, it says whatever the obstacle is, you're supposed to actually go towards it. Right. And that going towards it is actually your path. That's the universe's path showing you the way of what you need to grow and work on. And I can't think of any moment in my life that I haven't had something that's an obstacle that I need to work on at any point.
You and me both, sister.
Constant. So, I think being human, sharing vulnerability as a leader, have a book club at your property management company with The Obstacle is the Way and talk about it. Personally, celebrate when people actually work through something that's really difficult.
Yeah.
Be a support and really, celebrate that grit and that resiliency. Difficult residents yelling at you in the office. Did you handle it well? Did you keep your calm? Did you go and let out the cry afterwards or whatever it was? But that's showing up and then leading by example in that way.
Yeah. High level of emotional intelligence involved in that situation as well. Understanding how you feel, how other people feel, a little bit of empathy goes a long way. Yeah.
Yes.
I think, I love the idea of going towards that obstacle, because I think when we're faced with difficult decisions or difficult circumstances, sometimes the easy thing is to kind of do about face and, find an easier route. But I'll tell you, when you go through those difficult circumstances and you're able to be on the other side, and kind of hindsight is 2020, right? And you look back and you're like, look at all the things that I learned through that experience, and look at how much better equipped I am now for the next big obstacle that comes my way. And I think that's where you have that growth mindset. You're not fixed. Your feet aren't planted. You're still moving forward. It may be slow going sometimes, but I love that whole concept of, keeping the ball rolling forward, always forward.
It's a beginner's mindset, I think, as well, right? We're never too seasoned or too old to learn something new or get better at something, or even change our perspective on something.
Yep.
Change our mind.
Yep. And
awesome.
So I don't remember who said it, but somebody said, when you think you know it all, that's the time to start learning, because
My dad.
We never will have.
Always. Yeah, totally. I agree with that.
Cool. So kind of as we wrap things, I do want to make sure everybody will know how to get a hold of you, how to find the PMX Partners website information, and we wish you nothing but the best success in your new venture. But before I kind of close this conversation, I do have one question that I ask all of our guests, and I apologize for not prepping you beforehand.
You're fine. I'm excited.
Yeah, no, it's a fun one. So we use the word audacious here at the Multifamily Mind, and we define audacious as recklessly brave, daring, kind of like that, explorer who's going to, no matter what people say, they're going to do what they want to do because it's got to be done. Kind of that grit and growth mindset at work right there. And you've got such a great background. I mean, anything from, SaaS and prop tech to operations and strategy. What's an audacious take that you have regarding multifamily at the current moment?
I think we're at the precipice of a lot of opportunity. Problems really are opportunities in disguise. And I think multifamily is going to be radically different from talent and work in the next 5 years. I think technology is actually going to start making a critical difference in the way that everybody works and the service that's provided. And I think we have to rethink how we attract and retain talent. And companies that are focused on those two things, whether they're a prop tech company or a multifamily operator owner, they're really going to win and stand out in the next 5 years.
Love it. That's a great take. Well, thank you so much. This has been a great conversation. I wish we actually had more time, because I could probably talk to you for another 2 hours, but we will invite you back for a future conversation. How does that sound?
I would love that. And I need to have you on my podcast, Steve. So
yeah, definitely.
Invite.
Okay, I'll invite accepted, and we will celebrate the overwhelming. What does my friend Tucker say? Fabulously rich success of PMX Partners, and just appreciate you being here today. Thank you all for joining us as well. We hope that the conversation was enlightening and inspiring for you. Again, this is Steve Wunch on the Multifamily Mind, super powered by SalesMail, the easiest way to send personalized video via email, text, and CRM. Thanks so much for joining us. We'll see you next time. Thank you for joining us on this episode of the Multifamily Mind podcast, brought to you by SalesMail, the easiest way to send personalized video via email, text, and CRM. To learn more, go to salesmail.com. And remember, always be audacious. Until next time, I'm Steve Wunch. Have a great week.